Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Telford and Wrekin Council Licensing Committee. I've just got a few little things to tell you about. Due to the COVID-19 regulations, today's meeting is held using audio conferencing and available for the public to listen to via the audio feed on the agenda page of our website or via the council's YouTube channel. This ensures that all those included or interested in the meeting can hear how the decisions are made. Members and other participants should only speak when invited to do so. So if possible, will everyone ensure that their microphones are on mute while they are not addressing the committee? Anyone disrupting the procedure will have their microphones muted or removed from the meeting. Members are asked to use the hand raised facility if they wish to speak. So that's my few words of advice to everyone. Thank you very much. So we will start off the agenda, and could I have the roll call on apologies? Who's here, please?
Certainly, Chair, I'll deal with that for you. Yes, members, if I could take what is risk of becoming a time-honoured tradition, I think, these days, a roll call of members present for the record. If, when I read out your name, if you would please confirm your presence. Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, here.
Thank you. Councillor Turley?
Present.
Councillor Sahota?
Present.
Councillor Seymour?
Present.
Councillor Reynolds?
Present.
And Councillor English?
England. Present.
Sorry, England, sorry, my writing. Councillor England, thank you. Apologies. Are there any members present that I have missed? No, thank you, Chair.
We've had no apologies, have we?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Terry Kiernan and Councillor Jackie Seymour is the substitutes.
All right, thank you, Jackie, for that. Right, we'll move then onto the agenda. Any declarations?
None, Chair.
No? Right. Minutes of the previous, I know this is a long time, but perhaps there's someone here who could move them.
Move them, Chair.
It has been moved and seconded. All in agreed? Show of hand will do. That's
Yep.
fine. Right, item 4, this is the review of the council's licensing policy, when I shall call upon Anita to present this report.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Chair. As discussed, Chair, if you're happy for me to go through, I'm not going to go through the whole of the report in detail, and obviously the policy, because it's quite a long policy. What I'd like to do is just pull out the salient bits, just so members can ask questions if that's okay.
Well,
so really,
members have had the notes, so they've read them, I'm sure. So
Okay.
yes, carry on, Anita.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, this is the review of the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy. So members of the Licensing Committee are requested to consider the amended Statement of Licensing Policy with a view to recommend its approval and adoption at full council meeting. So basically, under Section 5 of the Licensing Act 2003, Telford and Wrekin Council, which is the licensing authority, must publish the statement of its licensing policy every 5 years. In carrying out its functions under the Licensing Act, and the licensing authority also has to have regard to the policy, its policy, and to the Home Office guidance and issued by Section 182 of the Licensing Act. So in essence, the policy sort of explains how the licensing authority intends to exercise its licensing functions under the 2003 Act. So the policy sets out how the applications will be looked at and determined under the Licensing Act. It also sets out the expectations of the licensing authority on its ways that the licensing authority and the licensed premises can work together and with partners to improve the licensing economy of the borough, during both the day and night time. So the Act provides for 4 different types of authorisation. You may be familiar with some of these. So follow things like personal licences, which so the people who sell or authorise the sale of alcohol from premises in respect of which there is a premise licence in place. Premises licenses themselves, so the use of the premises for licensable activities. These licensable activities are things like sale by retail of alcohol, provision of regulated entertainment. It also includes provision of late night refreshment, which is the supply of hot food and drink from any premises between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. It also provides for an authorisation of club premises certificates, again allowing the qualifying pub to engage in qualifying club activities, and then obviously temporary event notices. This is where you have a temporary event and you are able to carry out licensing activities at that event. So the licensing authority is also responsible for the administration and determination of applications for the above types of authorisation. The licensing authority will have to take into account there's 4 licensing objectives, and these are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. So applications must cover the 4 licensing objectives, and the policy sets out how these can be promoted responsibly by an applicant. The policy also covers such matters of licensable hours, conditions, representations, and the roles and responsibilities of responsible authorities. Too many responsibilities there. So whether you're familiar, the responsible authorities are currently the licensing service itself, Chief Officer of Police, which is West Mercia Police, Fire Authority, the Enforcing Authority for Health and Safety, which at the moment obviously will be Environmental Health. However, there are some premises covered by the Health and Safety Executive, such as schools or hospitals. Planning, Environmental Health, Pollution Control, Local Safeguarding Children's Board, Trading Standards, and then the Local Authority Director of Public Health and the Home Office Immigration Enforcement. It also covers reviews and actions it can take when determining review applications, for example, modifying licence conditions, excluding a licensable activity, removing designating premise supervisors if you're suspending a licence or revoking licences. It also covers enforcement and things like non-payment of fees. As stated, it is a statutory requirement to review the statement of licensing policy every 5 years. So following a review undertaken by Public Protection, a draft policy was subject to an 8-week consultation period. There has been one response to the consultation. This is attached to Appendix B. The recommendations from this representation has been incorporated into the draft policy, and they are in red. So the draft policy has also been streamlined into a shorter and clearer policy document to the one currently in place. Our overall stance and its application hasn't changed, but we have removed any out-of-date information that's available in other forms that does not form part of the policy. And there we use links instead to ensure the applicants or interested parties can follow the policy, but then have access to the relevant information. So obviously the recommendations tonight in the report is that members have regard to the amended statement of licensing policy, and the licensing committee approve that is presented to council at its meeting on the 26th of November 2020, and the licensing committee recommend the council approve and adopt the amended statement of licensing policy to be implemented on the 7th of January 2021. So Chair, I don't know whether perhaps
yes,
there are any questions.
Could I just say to Anita and Suzanne a big thank you, because they have put a lot of work into this policy and they've made it a much easier to read and to accept, and I do congratulate them on that. Right, is there any questions for Anita now from anyone?
Hello there.
Oh, Culdip?
Yeah, go on then. Anita, the public safety and opening times, etc. We have this in our document, but they can be overridden by the government legislation or something. Like, for instance, everything's up in arms with the COVID-19. So these are all subject to the changes if the government wishes to at the last minute.
Chair, are you okay for me to respond?
Yes, by all means.
Yeah. Councillor Sauter, Yes, there is. They can do that. Obviously, you've seen with the sort of the health protection regulations coming forth, they have obviously put that 10 p.m. curfew on premises. I mean, in general, that's probably been the first time that I've actually been aware that the government has put specific legislation out to change what would normally be a decision that's made, you know, in local licensing authorities. So yes, obviously, it is possible that they can do that, and they would have actually passed legislation to ensure, and we would have to obviously abide by that. But generally, it is the local licence authority that would look at the licensing hours. Obviously, it's consulted the responsible authorities. We'll see the applications, and obviously we'll take those into account in response to whether we actually agree to those licensing hours, or whether we actually suggest we would like for it to be reduced. That's usually normally the case. Obviously, wouldn't want to extend them if they've not asked for them.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishes? Any hands up? Anybody?
Yes, I have. I've got my hand up.
All right, Jackie.
Yeah. Thank you. I've got three little queries. One was on page 15. That was the response that had come in about live music. Because I've only had a few hours today to have a look at this, because I didn't know I was going to do this meeting.
All right.
So maybe if I'd read it again, it might have been clearer. But there was a reference to beer gardens, and it said that on page 15, and it said cannot have conditions placed on them in respect to the provision of music. Well, surely that can't be right, can it?
Anita, can you answer that for?
If you're okay, Chair, I will ask Suzanne if she wouldn't mind commenting on that.
Oh, right. Yes, that's fine.
Hello, Chair. I'm just trying to find that page in the policy document, if you will just bear with me.
Councillor Seymour, is it page 15 of the draft document, or is it or is it the actual number? Is it the?
I think it was page. I think it was the actual number of the page. I think as I was going. Yes, the actual number of the page as I was going through the document, because that's reading it online. It was how it's coming up.
Just bear with me. I am almost there.
Right.
It was in the email that was attached to the, and it was towards the end of that.
So it's page 15 of the document itself, Councillor Seymour, is it?
Is it? I think so, yes.
Is it under 8.22 live music, dancing and theatre? Is that?
I think that's what it would be, because I haven't got the thing in front of me, so I can't.
It's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that stage, I was. It was if you've got the email thing that was attached, the email document thing, it was written in, wasn't it, about live music?
Yes, let me
and it's towards the end of that. There was this reference to beer gardens, which puzzled me.
Have you got that, Suzanne, now?
I'm on page 15, Chair, so I'm just looking.
Suzanne, it may be page 15 of the actual scanned document, so I'm just trying to see. Maybe that's why we've got the policy up, and that's probably why it's not just with us.
Yeah.
It
would, because it was how I was looking at it. It came up as page 15. How I was looking at it, which was the scanned document, wasn't it?
So is there no joy on that then, Suzanne?
I can't actually find the paragraph that Councillor Seymour is referring to. If somebody has the scanned document and they could look at page 15 and tell me which paragraph number it is, then that means that I'll be able to find it on my copy.
Well, if shall I move on to the to my next query?
Yes, carry on.
You could always come back to me on that as a clarification.
Yeah.
This, and I've got another page here, 21, but it was para 4.2, and it was about the planning policy and strategy. There's the first bit, one of the bits in red. And it just struck me that it was an odd place to put an item about planning and policy, because it had been it was about other things entirely. It was gosh, it's so difficult when you haven't got the document in front of you.
Yeah, we're not having that document in front of us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Councillor Seymour, I can see, I can take your point on the 4.2, whether obviously that needs to go in a different place
yes,
within the policy. Is that what you're saying? Yes.
Yes, it came under nighttime economy and integrated. Yes, nighttime economy, integrated strategies, and I thought perhaps it should go under para 5 for good practice. You know, I don't know, because it covered all kinds of things in that planning policy, a whole range of things that have got nothing to do with nighttime economy. So,
Suzanne, can you
go somewhere else?
It's where in the document that is placed, then, that you're saying, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. There's nothing with it. It was perfectly all right.
What's wrong with it? It's all right.
But where it was.
Yeah.
Would you like me to answer that, Chair?
Yes, by all means.
Yes. Councillor Seymour, it was myself that put that there, and it was in relation to the integrated strategies with the licensing economy, that planning strategy is just one of those strategies that is integrated into it. And it was in particular response to the Musicians Union that asked if we could include it in relation to the noise from premises and new residential buildings which are erected after premises are there already operating as a music venue. So that is why I put it there, because it was the actual policy that the council has in relation to planning and music venues and potential noise nuisance when which refers to the building of residential properties.
It didn't seem to say much about noise nuisance, but it covered all kinds of other things about development that bore no relation to.
Yes, it was the particular part of this strategy that refers to music venues and planning consents for residential buildings. That is we had to put the link to the whole planning strategy, but it is just meant to refer to that one part of the strategy. Right.
Well, perhaps it should best clarify a little bit, because it just seemed, as I was coming across it, as reading it, I thought, why is that there? It didn't seem to have much relationship. So if Suzanne goes back and looks at that paragraph there, and if it was put in a different way, you'd be quite happy with nothing against it. Oh, no, nothing against the thing itself. My final point was, again on page 18 of the document, there was a reference to the current, in the introduction, there was a reference to the current population figures, of very specific, 173,600. But I was under the impression that the population, and it wasn't a new insert, so it must be something that was already in the document. And I understand the population is now more up to about 177,000 odd. I don't know the precise figure, but perhaps that hasn't been updated. And if you're going to update something, then perhaps that could be updated as well.
Yes, I think that's what it looks like there. So would you be satisfied with Suzanne going back and rephrasing that perhaps and getting to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, anyone else with any questions on the policy? Well, you've got the recommendation. I don't know if you've all got it in front of you, have you, or is it on the screen? There it is. That's the two recommendations.
Gone again.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. So it's really to ratify this thing to be accepted at full council. So there you are. Yeah. So Paul, do we go for a vote on this then?
If you're happy, I'm going to say the chair has asked that we take a roll call for the votes as we do currently in other committees, formal committees of the council. Just to conclude, to confirm for members, obviously the policy, I'm sure Anita will covered it, the policy has to be approved by full council. So obviously, as you see there, the recommendations are that having considered the amendment statement licence of policy, that you members of the licence committee approve that it be presented to council at its meeting on the 26th of November 2020, and that as a licence committee, members recommend the council approve and adopt the amendment statement of licence, and this will be, if it is approved by full council, will be implemented on the 7th of January next year. So if I could take a roll call of the members, Councillor England. Your vote, please.
Yes.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
For.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Seymour.
For.
Councillor Sahota.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
And if I just have to note for the record, Councillor Lavery, I noticed you arrived partway through that matter. Unfortunately, you arrived at 6:10, and unfortunately, it was after the presentation of the officer's report. So, Chair, unfortunately, I'm not able because Councillor Lavery has not heard the report, and obviously he's not asked any questions in any case. But I'm not able to ask for a vote from Councillor Lavery in the event. Hopefully, that's clear.
So is that everyone voted now?
Thank you. Yes, and that is carried by all members.
Right. So thank you, members. Right. That's lovely. So that will go to full council to be accepted. Right. We move on to our agenda then. We'll move to item 5, which is the review of the council private hire vehicle and acne condition of licence for tinted windows. And is it Anita or is it Suzanne taking us through this?
No, it's me again, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine, Anita.
Okay. Yeah. So, as again, I don't propose to go through it word for word, but obviously I will pull out the salient bits, and obviously we can take questions after. So, obviously this is the review of the council's private hire and hackney carriage conditions of licence for tinted windows. So the purpose for members is to review the following condition of licence, which is currently in place. So any vehicle submitted for licence which is fitted with tinted windows must have windows which are factory fitted options at the time of the manufacture of the vehicle, and the vehicle shall be constructed or designed so as to enable passengers to be seen in the vehicle from any direction when observed from outside of the vehicle, and glass shall have a minimum light transmissions of 75% for front windscreen, 70% for the front side windows, and 34% for all the other vehicle window glass. So obviously we had in response to a request from the trade to review this condition. So this is obviously why this report was put together. So the private hire vehicles and Hackney carriage conditions have standards for levels of tint in windows, and that was agreed by licensing committee in 2017. In law, the level of tint allowed in the front windscreen and the driver and front passenger windows is set, but it's not tested as part of the MOT or the compliance test we do for taxis. So therefore, this is why we've included this in the conditions. All the other windows have the minimum transparency set at 34%. And that is our own condition that we've set.
Sounds as though it's frozen again. We have these little itches now and then.
Yes, Chair, it looks like... Oh, hello. Sorry, you're back, Anita. We're struggling with you there.
Are you okay,
Can
Anita?
you hear me now?
Are you all right? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Did you miss some of that?
No, I think we got to 34%. That's all the last thing I think I heard you say.
Right. Okay, thank you. So up to the current standards are set with the reasons in mind for having clear visibility in the rear of a licensed vehicle. So these are to ensure public safety and the well-being of passengers and drivers. So activities taking place in the vehicles cannot be viewed from the public outside, posing both a risk to the passengers and the driver. Council officers need to see whether there are any passengers in the vehicle, and if there are, what maximum number of passengers are in there, those not being exceeded by the number on the plate. Passengers need to be able to see who is in the vehicle before they get into it. And then vulnerable passengers, such as lone females and young persons, will feel safer in the vehicle if they could be seen. So, you know, public safety is a very important aspect for the committee to consider when resolving to approve conditions of licence or revised conditions. So the licensing service and the licence service is also has been raising awareness of child sexual exploitation, with the Hackney Carrick and private HSE is also included on the council's driver awareness training. So you'll note that licence service in January and February in 2020, we received 5 requests from vehicle proprietors to add the following makes and models of vehicles to the council's approved list of private hire vehicles, and these vehicles all complied with the current council's condition pertaining to windows tint levels. These like the Skoda Rapide, Skoda Fabia Estate, Hyundai 140, Peugeot 2008, and the Suzuki Baleno. So it's an example of things that were new obviously vehicles coming, new models coming, and these were all quite happily accepted by the council, and they all had windows that complied with their requirements. The licence services obviously carried out a full consultation with the following part. They were the town and parish councils, ward members, self-rescue, independent safeguarding, public health, Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle proprietors, all our drivers, dual drive, in respect of this, the licensing. 7 of the responses are in support of maintaining the existing condition, and these responses are attached to Appendix D. 2 responses would like to see either level of tint maintained or lightened, or lightened tint in all areas. These are attached to Appendix. There are 2 responses would like to see no specification to the level of tint permitted, other than the windows being required to be factory fitted at the time of manufacture, i.e. removing the percentage of light transmission permitted in licensed vehicles.
Sorry, Anita, Anita, it's Paul. Can I just ask you to pause, please, Anita? Anita? Sorry, Chair, I just interrupted Anita. I don't know how members are experiencing,
these
but
responses
I'm not getting an awful lot.
Appendix F.
Not very good, actually, coming through.
One is from A to Z licensing, which attaches.
All right. Thank you. Chair, I don't know how much other members have been getting of Anita's presentation, but I've had very little. And I also noticed that Councillor Hoskins joined soon after she had started. Clearly, this is the last agenda item, and for Councillor Hoskins to be able to vote, I think it may be advisable if we ask Anita to switch her camera off and maybe just start again. And see if we can get any more of her report, because I take the view what I've heard so far is maybe not enough for members to be able to form a valid decision.
Well, no, you have to listen very carefully. You're missing little points. Yes, it is important that you get the full information. Yes. So are you happy with that if we ask Anita just to turn off and just hear the voice coming through, and if it's clearer?
Councillor Turley has got his hand up as well. If he wants to say something.
Yeah. Sorry, very quickly, Chair. I've actually got another laptop to my side here, and I'm actually, as Anita was speaking, I was following what is in the papers we've had, but obviously some of you haven't. So I support what Paul has said. We obviously need to go back and
on this one. Yes. Yeah. Yes, if Anita wouldn't mind.
Are you able to do that, please, Anita? Start again, but just with sound only.
That's fine, Chair. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, I think it's when the camera's off, it's better.
Is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay, Chair. If that's okay, I'll start again. But if you could indicate if I lose, I may have to go on my phone instead of my laptop, and we'll try that. Okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. So this item on the agenda is to review the council's private hire and hackney carriage conditions of licence for tinted windows. So the purpose is for members to review the following condition of licence. Any vehicle submitted for licence which is fitted with tinted windows must have windows that are factory fitted options at the time of manufacture of the vehicle, and the vehicle shall be constructed and or designed so as to enable passengers to be seen in the vehicle from any direction when observed from outside the vehicle, and glass shall have a minimum of light transmittance of 75% for the front windscreen, 70% for the front side windows, and 34% for all other window glass. So this is the condition that's currently in place. So in response to a request from the trade to review this condition, so the private hire vehicles and hackney carriages have standards for the level of tint in windows, which was agreed by licensing committee in 2017. So in law, the level of tint allowed in the front windscreen and the driver and front passenger windows is set, but it is not tested as part of the MOT and compliance test for taxis. Therefore, this is why we've included these in the conditions. Those are the 75% and the 70%. All the other windows have a minimum transparency set as 34%, which is specifically has been set by us as conditions. So the current condition was set with the reasons in mind for having clear visibility in the rear of the licensed vehicle. So they're obviously to ensure public safety and the well-being of passengers and drivers. So activities taking place in the vehicle that cannot be viewed outside the vehicle, they would pose a risk to both the passenger and the driver. So the view is that we should be able to see any activities taking place. Council officers need to see whether there are any passengers in the vehicle, and if they are, what maximum number of passengers are in there and they're not being exceeded by the licence plate. Passengers need to be able to see who is in the vehicle before they get in. And vulnerable passengers, as lone females and young persons, will feel safer if they're in the vehicle where they can be seen. So public safety is an important aspect for the committee to consider when resolving to approve a condition or a revised condition. The licensing services is also obviously has been raising awareness of child sexual exploitation within the hackney carriage and private hire trade, and training on CSE is included in all the council's driver awareness training. So you will note that the licensing service in January and February received 5 requests from vehicle proprietors to add the following makes and models of vehicles to the council's approved list of private hire vehicles. These vehicles all complied with the council's current condition pertaining to window tint levels. There is obviously in the committee papers a list of vehicles, 5 vehicles that we've actually put in. They're sort of common vehicles that are used obviously by the private hire trade for suitable for taxis. The licensing service, as we had a request to review, we carried out a full consultation on this condition with the following parties. There are the town and parish councils, ward members, West Mercia Police, Shropshire Fire and Rescue, Independent Safeguarding, Public Health, Hackney Carriage and private hire proprietors, our dual drivers, which includes our Hackney Carriage drivers and all our private hire drivers, and our private hire operators. As a result of this consultation, the licensing service received 11 responses, to which 7 of the responses are in support of maintaining the existing condition, and these responses are attached to Appendix D. 2 responses would like to see either level of tint maintained, lightened, or tint lightened at all, and these are attached to Appendix E. And then 2 responses would like to see no specification to the level of tint permitted, other than the windows being required to be factory fitted at the time of manufacture, i.e. removing the percentage of light transmissions permitted in licensed vehicles from the existing licence condition. This would refer to the 34%. These responses are attached at Appendix F. One is from A to Z Licensing, which attaches a petition on behalf of Diamond Cars and Go Cars, and is one from a driver, and one is for a driver who submitted his own response and has also signed the petition. The petition has 139 signatures. The petition asks for licensed vehicles to be admitted to have manufacturer's tinted glass. The reasons given for this are that it will reduce the risk of small children and babies suffering sunstroke, and that it will reduce exhaust emissions by reducing the need to open windows or use air conditioning. So, having considered all the relevant information, what we're asking members to consider in the responses for the consultation process is, beg your pardon, I'll start again. Having considered all the relevant information, members are asked to consider the responses of the consultation process and either resolve to maintain the current licence condition related to tinted windows for Hackney Carriage and standard for private hire vehicles as outlined as above in the report in one above, and then or to resolve to amend the current licence condition related to tinted windows for Hackney Carriage and standard private hire vehicles to read: any vehicle submitted for licence which is fitted with tinted windows must have windows which are fitted options at the time of manufacture of the vehicle. Chair, would perhaps be open to questions.
Thank you very much for that, Anita. Right, it's up to members if they wish to ask any questions on that. Any hands up? No? Oh, Arnold England's got one.
Yes, thank you. Are the regulations standard across authorities? The reason I ask that, because a number of private hire vehicles are registered outside the borough. So do we have differences in vehicles that are actually serving residents of the borough? Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, Chair, if you're happy, I can respond to that.
Yes.
So, Councillor England, yes. All right. These will only apply to licences that are issued by Telford and Wrekin Council. In respect to that, yes, there is nothing set down in statute or mandatory best practice at the moment that requires the licensing authority to attach a condition in respect to the one we have in relation to 34%. So it will vary in relation to licensing authorities.
That's all right for you, Marla? Anyone else? Oh, Jackie, have you got your hand up?
Yes, it's not really a question because I'm one of those who responded, and I I was appalled that we had rear windows that went down as low as 34%. I was appalled at the time, but I went along with the decision, and I would certainly go along with a decision to keep the standard as it is now. I certainly shouldn't let it go any darker for any of the windows. And I would like to know if we could actually persuade those other councils that people licensed in this area rather get their license in other areas and then operate in this area. And I would hope that they would fall in with with the standards that we would set on this. And I would like to see, I believe something is being done to try and persuade them to accept our standards, but I would like to know in a little more detail what is and when we might get a firm reaction to that.
Yes, Anita, do you want to answer us?
I think just generally, obviously, you know that obviously we do obviously discuss matters with obviously neighbouring councils, but obviously it is their decision if they wish to adopt these standards. Obviously you will be aware that there are the government has actually issued some new taxi standards, which obviously will be coming before committee at a later date, because obviously Suzanne and I have work to do to change some of our policies. But I'm not aware that the tinted windows is part of that new standards. Suzanne, can you confirm that?
Yes, I can confirm that there is no mention of the level of tint in licensed vehicles' windows in the new statutory standards.
Shame. Right, I think Jim Lavery, he's got his hand up.
I'd just like to do we know what the standards are in Wolverhampton? Because I do know a lot of taxi drivers register in Wolverhampton, because we have a tighter control on the fuel level, the blue level that we have. In their vehicles fail here, so they go to Wolverhampton. Does it apply to the windows as well?
Right, Anita.
Yeah. Councillor Overley, obviously that I'll have to ask Suzanne, because she will know more specifically whether whether Wolverhampton have any standards regarding tinted windows. Suzanne, could I ask you to respond?
Yes, I can respond. Wolverhampton just allow factory fitted tints, so you will see vehicles licensed by Wolverhampton working in Telford with not just dark tints but privacy windows, where those privacy windows have been fitted at the point of manufacture.
Right, is there anyone else with questions? No other hands up? No? Well, it's your time to choose which way you want to go.
Chair, if I could take a roll again. Members, you'll see the recommendation. Oh, you won't? Yes, you do. The recommendations as set out by Anita and contained in your report are there for you. Why I'd suggest the easiest way we deal with it if I take each of the recommendations in turn and ask for your vote on each, and then hopefully one of them will win out over the other. Obviously, so as usual, if I could ask members as I read your name, if you could respond in the usual way, for, against or abstain. If we could start with council in reference to the first recommendation, resolve to maintain the current licence condition relating to tinted windows for hackney carriages and standard private hire vehicles as outlined in paragraph 1 above of the report. If I could start with Councillor Hoskins, please.
For.
You're for. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
Councillor Sahota.
For, sorry.
Councillor Seymour.
For.
Councillor Reynolds.
For.
and Councillor England.
For.
And have I missed anybody out? No, thank you. Then on the second recommendation, resolution to amend the current licence condition relating to tinted windows for hackney carriages and standard private hire vehicles, such that it will read any vehicle submitted for licence which is fitted with tinted windows must have windows which are factory fitted options at the time of the manufacture of the vehicle. If I could start with Councillor Hoskins, please.
For.
Sorry. In terms of, just to clarify, obviously the vote will resolve one or other of the option. So I would expect if members voted for one, they would vote against the other, because clearly what we would end up with, if members vote for the first one, the conditions will not change, the conditions will remain the same. Whereas if you vote for the second recommendation.
Understood, mistake made.
Thank you, councillors.
All right, then, Miles.
Councillor Hoskins.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Against.
Councillor Turley.
Against.
Councillor Sahota.
Against.
Councillor Seymour.
Against.
Councillor Reynolds.
Against.
And Councillor England.
Against.
Thank you, members. So clearly the resolution of the committee is as recommended. The first recommendation, 2.1.1 of your report, you resolve to maintain the current licence condition relating to tinted windows for hackney carriages and standard private hire vehicles. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members. That brings us to the end of our meeting, and thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Stay
Bye.
safe. Bye.
Bye.